Welcome to The Hero Maker. In this series, we follow Richard's appearances on other shows as he talks about how to grow, play, think, and live like a hero. Join him as he discusses thoughts, principles, and life lessons, all essential for anyone building their heroic brand. All that and more, only on The Hero Maker.
The thing that really drove the point home for me was reading Perry Marshall's book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing, which I should have read a long time ago. But when I read it and he laid out just what it takes to build that funnel that profitably brings new people into your email list, either at a break even or a small profit, you got a sense of just the step-by-step, systematic, methodical way that you have to work through that process to end up with that result. And as I'm reading that book, it just dawned on me. I'm like, okay, this is what most of us, at least in my world, this is what most of us are avoiding, right? We'd rather stick with whatever our comfort zone is, which if you come from the organic side where you're used to just investing your time and you feel like you're delivering things that essentially cost you nothing to deliver, right? And acquiring a new customer doesn't feel like it costs you anything because it was just your time. Right. So if you come with that approach and then you kind of build up your business so that it attracts attention that way, what happens is it takes longer to build your email list, right? You start relying on your podcast and stuff like that. Like people start to look at things like podcasting as a way to like magically grow a bigger email list. The problem is that just doesn't happen fast, and you mentioned compressing the time. So if we combine like one of the things that you're working on getting your clients to do is combine both. And that's kind of where I want to push my clients too. So how do we get people to kind of get into that mentality that, hey, we need to be doing both? Like each of them can work, but they work better, faster together.
Yeah. So what I found, the discussion I have with a lot of my clients is a foundational one on how to think about their business in terms of costs and expenses. Right. And for whatever reason in the space we're in, my customers, and probably yours too, tend to think of the cost of doing business in a weird way. We think of it like you mentioned earlier, like it's free. It didn't cost me anything. It just cost me my time, which is insane to me because your time's the most valuable thing you have, right?
Right.
It just cost me my time. Yeah, right. So you gave up your most valuable possession in exchange for a customer. And I like to coach my clients to start thinking of the actual cost that comes, to run a business. I mentioned before we got on the call, I worked for a solar company. We did 10x their lead flow in a couple of years and did 50 million plus in sales while I was working with them. And the owner of the company was, he was on the board of directors for like 12 different companies. So he was at the helm for a lot of companies, and I got to listen to him on like what their targets were for cost of, and they got really detailed into costs. Things like, what's our labor cost of product? What's our energy cost of product? And they got all the way down. One of the things to help people do is like, if they're working with a commercial company that makes bread, how much money does it actually cost to produce every loaf of bread in energy? Like, what's the energy cost of a loaf of bread? So really cool stuff that they were working on. And just learning how to see your business in terms of like a really clear picture of cost of goods sold and the margin of acquiring a customer. Our biggest competitor at the time was Solar City. Solar City is owned by Elon Musk, and they were spending $5,000 a customer $5,000 per lead for a customer. So they were spending something close to like $25,000 to acquire a customer that would net them on average $7,000 to $10,000 in the first part of the sale, which is insane. And they're doing that because they were getting long-term leases that would, future value, right? And so like that's a big company that's really looking at my cost of customer acquisition is actually 5x what I'm doing and building for the long term. Which is like, that's not the way, like normal people can't afford 5x their profit, but they've got, Wall Street money. But interesting, looking at how we were trying to compete with them, he's like, we can spend up to, 70% of our revenue to acquire a customer. And they did that in all their businesses. So that he's like, we can run a profitable business, pay for our staff, pay for our marketing, pay for everything on 28% margins. So I try to talk to my customers about that. It's like, how do you build everything in your business to think about like, everything from pricing to having a back end to being able to afford to spend 70%, right? You don't have a lot of COGS, spend it all on customer acquisition.
Yeah.
and actually grow your business.
If you want to hear the rest of this discussion, please check out the link to the full episode in the description below.